Awesome. Thank you, Nate. So we can get started. Like I said, Mr. G has welcomed us into his studio, which is really thrilling for us. And so I will turn it over to him at this point. And then our team is monitoring the chat. So if anyone has comments or questions that they want to put there, you can absolutely do that or message us directly or unmute yourselves if Mr. G is okay with questions coming at him that way. Awesome. Well, we'll turn it over to you.
Hello, everybody. So as Kelsey said, my name is Gary G. I grew up in the Indianapolis area on the east side. I've pretty much been into art since I was 4 or 5 years old, drawing on anything in the house. When I was like in the 6th grade, my mom brought me a professional art kit when we had these long Christmas breaks, no YouTube and none of that fun stuff. I had to pretty much read a book and just kind of taught myself how to play with everything. And by junior high, I ended up going to Heron School of Art for Saturday schools. And it kind of changed my perspective in life. But then I kind of got lost along the way. Like I would do art in high school, but never really thought about pursuing it as a job because, people kind of discouraged me back then. Like, get a real job, get a real job. I've had a bunch of crazy jobs in life that I learned from, but I didn't really work out for me. And I ended up going back to school later in life for graphic design, which led me back to fine art. And I ended up getting a couple of degrees one in graphic design and so an associate's in graphic design, an associate's in fine art, and a bachelor's from Heron. So I kind of went 360 and made it all the way back to where I kind of started as a kid. So that was a fun project for me. I work with Arts for Learning and this with Miss Portia Jackson on here. And that's how I came into this program. And I also have work at the Children's Museum right now with some of the members of the 18. So we did the Black Lives Matter mural on Indiana Avenue last year, and which they're actually about to start tearing up that street. So this Saturday, if you're free, some of the artists and people will be starting to hang out down there for the next few days as well. And we still have the display in the Children's Museum. So it's kind of an honor to be here with you guys tonight. So I was just, like I said, we're just pretty much hanging out in my studio. Behind me, I got a piece of paper off of this new little sketchbook I brought, and I got some pastels that someone brought me. And I kind of can just work and play around and kind of show you guys how I do whatever. You see something, I don't know, I might draw a portrait of somebody who doesn't exist or some crazy concept. So if it's something you want to see, say, hey, can you draw this? Maybe I can put it in here tonight. And we can just have a little fun, interactive way and see what's done at the end of this. And ask any questions or talk about anything that you want to talk about. My studio is kind of chaotic right now, but I could show you some of my work as well. So maybe before we do that, I have a couple of things that I had just went and picked up from the Briarpool Art Center. So myself and the 18 had a show there as well called 365 Plus. And it was just various artwork from all of us. So I've kind of got like pieces in my studio that I'm working on at the same time. And, like I said, it's kind of chaotic sometimes. I think that's how some of us artists live our life. But a lot of my stuff is centered in drawing. And then my degree is drawing and ceramics. So like this is a ceramic piece that I call the Pharaoh. And it's like I kind of just draw on the ceramics. And then the gold on here is like an actual gold luster. So it's like you paint it on and then the gold comes back gold, but it looks some creepy, weird color at first. So I kind of has evolved to ceramics as well as drawing. A lot of my ideas kind of start as drawing sometimes. So these are some of the pieces that I like to make. I make these little ceramic heads. They're usually about 6 to 8 inches tall. And again, they're explain what inspired me. So a lot of things have inspired me in life. But does anyone out there know of a TV show called Good Times? Okay, so Good Times, and J.J. Evans on Good Times was a Black artist. So this is like who was my role model at first for the longest. J.J. Evans from Good Times. And when I went to college, I have a professor named Hector Del Campo, And we're friends now. I teach at the same college. So I teach at Ivy Tech. I get to teach drawing. So it's kind of a weird turn of events. But long story short, I was inspired by a lot of the paintings by J.J. Evans on Good Times. This is another ceramic piece I call the Chief. This is like some old earring I found. So it's like found object stuff sometimes. But so in that though, my professor said, hey, I like that answer because everybody was like Picasso, Gauguin, Van Gogh, you know, just the artists that they knew about. So he said, but you know, J.J. Evans from Good Times did not paint those paintings, right? And I said, okay. But who did? He said, I don't know, but before the next class, you must tell me. So I had to do my research and I found out that the paintings were by an artist. I'm trying to find my favorite skull that I have left here, but they were by a painting, an artist named Ernie Barnes. And the interesting thing about Ernie Barnes is I was also inspired by like album covers when I was growing up. So like records, they're coming back out now. Y'all might see them in the stores or the big disc and they went out of style. But long story short, that's what it was when I was a kid. So album covers also inspired me a lot. And anybody know who Marvin Gaye is out there? See, even the young people know. I love that. So Marvin Gaye's album cover for Let's Get It On was a painting called The Sugar Shack by Ernie Barnes. So in this painting, that was one of the main paintings that was also in Good Times at the same time. So my whole life, I did not know that it was actually Ernie Barnes who inspired me. I found my favorite skull that I had left. I call this guy Third Eye Fly. So he has the gold teeth too. And it just started out as like some little crazy cartoon that I drew. So I like to just use my imagination a lot. But so back to the influences and inspiration. So J.J. Evans, I liked him too. So the bucket hat that he wore, which I usually have on, where's my logo? Sometimes you may have seen this logo. So I usually wear these hats, right? So J.J. Evans from Good Times wore these bucket hats. And then all the rappers, when I was in junior high, rap was like peaking. It was like the new hottest thing, maybe like 5th or 6th grade. But by junior high, it was like, you know, I'm a teenager. This is it. So this is my era. So they wore the Kangos, the Fat Boys, Run DMC, the LL Cool J. So it was like, as a kid, this is what I love. So my mom got me one of those one Christmas too, and you couldn't tell me nothing. You know how it is when we get something that we really want. But so all this is kind of like, as I find out later, it's kind of in my artist DNA. So I'm inspired by music and like old film and movies from even before I was born. So like in the 60s and 70s, and even some of the stuff from the 50s, like probably my mom's era. So I'm inspired by a lot of like stuff, but I try to stay away from pop culture stuff, you know, like what everybody else does. And if I do somebody like a Michael Jackson or a Prince in a piece, I want to change it from how everybody else's look. So I kind of just like to have fun and play around with whatever it is I'm doing. So those are some of the things that inspire me. Sometimes I think that certain colors that kind of inspire me and are just movements, but I would say really a lot of stuff from the 80s. The 80s is what I really love, you know, because once again, that's when I was like a teenager, I'm young, I'm kind of coming into my own, and I'm feeling things like that. So that to me was pretty cool, like just that era. And I try to retain a lot of the junior high me at times because I feel like that's when I was fun and my energy flowed. So I kind of draw to a lot of things like that. And sometimes life lessons, like kind of slide politics in every now and then, but I kind of stay away from them. So I did get to do when we had the riots here after George Floyd died, I got a chance to do the murals for racial justice when they did downtown. So if you ever made it downtown during that time period, it was 40 East Washington Street. It was the Symphony Center. So where the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra plays, I got to do like 11 panels there. And then in the end this summer, so a year later, the State Museum had like 4 artists in there. And I was one of the 4 artists from the panels that they chose. I was the only artist, though, however, at the end of the exhibition that the State Museum purchased my pieces that were on display. So in the beginning, I think I felt like it was important at the time that I got to be involved with that. So this is even before the Black Lives Matter mural came. But I felt like it was important to interject a lot of people and like togetherness and at the same time, like kind of my rage or frustration. So I did a piece called We the People Hold These Truths to Be Self-Evident. And I have like the Statue of Liberty kind of marching with a sign that she couldn't breathe. And Lady Justice was dragging the scales. But then I kind of had like everyday people. So a lot of times I love this song by Sly and the Family Stone, like I am everyday people, you know, a green one and a purple one and a red one and a blue one. It's like I just kind of always love that harmonious feel. So once again, I revert back to like old music, and song was before me, or I was a little kid when it came out, but it's just some of those things just stay in your mind all the time. So I kind of draw from that. And I was like drawing from people that were just having conversations with me. And then, so that was one of the main pieces. And then I kind of referenced it to anybody ever seen the movie called Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee? So it's like a classic, right? So I kind of put Radio Raheem in the same position as George Floyd, but I made him like larger than life on this 4 foot by 8 foot panel. And then I had like a red, black, and green flag that said Vanglorious. So it's like the same era for me in rap. It kind of references Marcus Garvey, but it referenced a group called the X Clan at the same time. So it was like all power to my people, like the Black Panthers. So it's like I kind of think through history. But then, like I said, going back into the piece that was We the People, I was using like some of the homeless guys would talk to me downtown. There was a suburban lady from Carmel that came and sat with me one day. There were people that I knew. There were a couple police officers that actually came and had conversations with me. So even in that whole time period, like there was a lot of tension in the air, but there was a lot of people that was looking for ways to come together. So that's what I kind of tried to do in my piece was like, how can I bring people together, but still say what I wanted to say as a Black man who was frustrated in America. And I kind of grew up in this frustration. And it was like, at first I wanted to stay far away from downtown when it was a peaceful demonstration, because I knew like some kind of way I knew I said something's gonna happen. But I was shocked that something happened in our city. So at the same time, to be involved in some of the healing processes or even the controversy of like Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter movement, it feels like for a kid who's been drawing my whole life, I got a chance to draw people into something that I felt like I was experiencing or the world was experiencing at the time. So a lot of times I do like to draw from like real life situations as well. But then I'm also a playful kid. So I used to watch a lot of cartoons when we did not have the Cartoon Network and TV went off. So, you know, it was like before school, after school, comic books, or Saturday morning. That was it. And I would try to emulate like what I saw in the comic books, like some of my big cousins, or what I saw on cartoons. Like one of my dreams I've dabbled with, but never really maintained is animation. It was always scary to me. But now there's so many different ways to do it. So you guys heard it first. That's one of my goals. It's something I'm going to try to do in the next few years and face my fears. So I feel like we should challenge ourselves no matter what and not get comfortable. I feel like I'm thankful, and it's a privilege and a reward as well as an honor to get to do something that I love to do. You know, like it's been years where people's like, get a job, get a real job. And I had to go to school myself and find out like, hey, I could actually be an artist. Like one of my old professors that was a mentor and now my boss, Mrs. Robinson, Stephanie was like, when I told her why I wasn't in the art classes, I was like, I didn't want to be a starving artist. And she laughed and said, you could be a starving designer, because I was okay, but I was not the greatest graphic designer. I'll say that. But with fine art, I just kind of love it. So I like to work with my hands. So from paper to clay, and then having the opportunities to do murals, it's like I was loving that. So like public art gives me the opportunity to interact with people like you know, and just talk about what I do. Or like, I love when my art has people that they get to talk, or they just kind of have conversations like, hey, why did you make this? Like, can you tell me what you think? Like sometimes I just like to hear that. Let me see. What do we say here?
I can read it too if people don't have or can't see the chat, but
okay.
I went into it a little bit, but I would just love if you feel like you want to speak a little bit more about, you had mentioned when you were younger, kind of being turned away from art by others as like a career choice, and just how you got to where you are now doing art that you love as your job. I just think that's so great to hear about.
Well, I think really it's kind of like, you know, it's the era or it's the time frame we come in, or how people think about you. And then especially as a Black kid or a Black man in certain time frames, like there were not opportunities, not even for men necessarily, for women. At one time, the art world primarily dominated by white men. And that's how you were going to get in. You had to be formally trained or educated. It was like, I did not know a lot of these routes. You know, you didn't know a lot of stuff. Like my mom would always say, you're going to need an education. I'm like, oh, I got talent, I can do it. Like, no, you're going to need an education. So it's like, I really had to go to school. Some people I know don't go to school. So that gets me this battle of, oh, I'm self-taught, I'm educated. And it's like, I'm kind of a combination of both. And I don't really think it matters how you do, but it's like a lot of practice and dedication. So it's like, no matter where I went in life, the military, I had been locked up once for doing stuff that I wasn't supposed to be doing, but it was a wrongful conviction, got overturned. But a lot of like the stuff that happened to me in my life has kind of inspired me to do more or do better with the time that I have left. So wherever I went, so like even in basic training in the Army, I was just drawing cartoons of like the drill sergeants or different stuff like that. And it ended up being voted the t-shirt that we had printed for basic training. So it was like, no matter where I went, I would draw, like get in trouble. So one time in high school though, I worked at Kroger and Broad Ripple. And I would be in and out of art classes, but still not, you know, at this point, still not thinking about a career. But everyone used to draw on the stalls in the bathroom, just Sharpie, magic marker. It was just the old school bathroom thing. It was graffiti. Wasn't legal. I can't say it's illegal, but you wasn't supposed to do it. But everybody drew on this wall in the bathroom. So one day I decided I like to draw. I'm gonna draw too. So I started drawing cartoons, and they were just stories. I would make up stories on the bathroom stall. So when people would come in there, they would read the stories and they'd be cracking up. But it just started as the older guys got a kick out of it. But one day, one of the guys told me, and you know, our assistant manager, she wasn't a bad person, but she stayed on everybody. Like, you know, like the meanest mother in the neighborhood. That's how she was on the job. Everybody complained about Miss T. So it was like one day I'm sitting there talking in the break room to these older guys, and one guy doesn't really like her, and she kind of made me mad that day. And he's like, you should draw a picture of her. So I'm like, okay. So I drew a story about her. And the next thing I know, everybody from every shift was bringing women in the bathroom and everybody. So, you know, within a week, Miss T found out it was in there. So it was like, after that, she came and she got me, and they didn't fire me. It wasn't in trouble, but she said, you have to clean all the graffiti off the bathroom walls. So, I mean, I got paid. I was on my shift, but I had to clean that. I'm like, well, I didn't do all that. Yeah, we know, but you have to clean everybody's. You have a distinctive style. We know your work. So it was like, after that, all the people that worked there felt bad, and they brought me a sketchbook and a bunch of markers, and they said, you need to keep a sketchbook. So at 16, I finally started keeping these little sketchbooks. And now I've got like a stack of sketchbooks just throughout the years. But sometimes the sketchbooks have become like diaries or journals. So I set a lot of goals for myself, like stuff that I didn't think I could do or just seemed far-fetched. And sometimes what's crazy is some of the stuff happens before you think it's going to happen, or you don't know it's going to happen. I mean, just even like tonight, I was like, one day I want to be able to talk about people, about my art, and just like I see people do it. So it's a lot of stuff that you do not see people doing, but now like the internet has made the world smaller. There's so much stuff that's made stuff so accessible. And at one point, so when I went back to school later in life, like I've been kicked out of high school, all kind of stuff. But what's funny is I used to draw in high school, but I was kind of like a history buff. So I would challenge the stuff that was on the test based on stuff that was down the hall. So like I read books like J.A. Rogers, Black Superman. I wrote The Dark Symphony. So I'm going to the school library and I'm reading all these books that are about Black people and history that are not in the textbooks. So I'm getting in trouble. So, you know, for me, like then to this day, you must say Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492, right? But theoretically, I feel like we all know that he was not here first, you know? So I would challenge my history teacher. I get in trouble for stuff, so I don't advise you to do this because I got kicked out and me and my mom would have a lot of conversations. But I went back to school one time and I'm like, hey, I'm here. I'm not going to talk back in classes. I'm going to be good. And this history teacher, for instance, he knew I liked history. And he said, Mr. G, you will pass my class with a B. I will allow you to sit in the back of my room and draw tennis shoes, but you cannot have any outburst about history or challenge my test. So you know what I said that day? I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna draw tennis shoes in the back of his room because my mom would kill me if I flunked that class from running my mouth again. But that also inspired me later to like, I love art history. So it was something that in high school, I was like, this stuff is boring because we was just listening and watching like the classic European artists at first. But when I went to college, I found out about a whole lot of other artists that I didn't know. So I've taken a women in art class and I found out about the Guerrilla Girls and Gabriella Munter. And then I also found out about Gabriella Munter in a German Expressionism class, which they dropped one of the classes I had, and I had a choice between Baroque art, which is like real French 1600s, I think. And I was like, I don't want to do a whole semester of that, or German art. And at first I was like, what am I doing? Nazi art? But it was the rebellion. So the rebellion of Nazi art fascinated me because it was just like, I mean, civil rights movements, but it was just in Germany. So it's like I could relate to some of these things. And then there was an artist, so I fell in love with a lot of them. So like Franz Marc, but there was a guy named George Groves who I found out about. And he actually, one time the Nazis came in his studio looking for him because, you know, he's anti-Nazis. They come to his studio looking for him. He does an accent in another language and they think that he's not him and they let him go. He escapes to America. When he escapes to America, I find out, so I do this paper. You got to write a lot in college too. Like, so you don't just get to draw, you still got to take all these other classes. And you're like, why am I taking math and algebra and all? I just want to draw. Well, they make you take everything. You're a well-rounded student, they say. I think it helps you though, and sometimes. But so long story short, I find out about Romare Bearden. So Romare Bearden, if anybody know about collages and making collages, so Romare Bearden is the godfather of collages. He's a Black man from the Harlem Renaissance. Like no other artist in the world was doing collages before Romare Bearden. But I find out that Romare Bearden and George Groves were both at the Artists League in New York at the same time. So I wrote a paper in this class that my one professor at the time said if I would have went back and rewrote it, my grade would have raised. And it probably could have been published, but I'm gonna be honest, I was lazy and I did not want to do it. So in that, I found out that I missed my mark. I could have got raised that grade, stayed in an extra semester and had a minor in art history, something I love, which would have got me a whole lot more money. Now it's too late to get the minor, but I can still exercise art history. So it's like, hey, that's just the way the cookie goes. So a lot of stuff I found out. So I'm fascinated by art history as much as movies, and I travel a lot. So I'm an art nerd now. So I travel to museums like anywhere I go. Like I don't like the club, I don't like the party anymore. The young me was wild and stupid. Now I like to culture myself, and I enjoy art museums wherever, particularly New York and California. I love them the most. I find an excuse to escape as much as I can. But we have some cool stuff going on here too. Did you know the Children's Museum, our Children's Museum is the #1 in the nation? Smile. Y'all should know that. See, we're good for something besides being the amateur sports capital of the world. Yeah. So my dream one day is to have us like this with art. Augustus Savage, not hip to Augustus, but I will have to look them up. Yeah. So there's just, you know, so there's a lot of stuff like that I think I'm inspired by. Just silly stuff. I think I did see that you said she was in was it 1920s? 30s. See, you learn something new every day. That's something else I feel like you're never too old to stop learning, or for people to inspire you. And I've even been taught stuff by people as young as 5 years old, maybe even 4 in some cases, which is where I feel like I've been drawing for like 4 or 5 years. So at this point, I feel like I've got like 46 years experience drawing.
Asking you about Augustus Savage because she was a trailblazer, Mr. G, and seems like to me you evoke some of her spirit.
You know, with Portia, a lot of times my good work, like my great work, no matter what it is, the vessel of me can take credit for being the person that does it, but I actually feel like the ancestors have driven me to do things.
And
That's
so when
really
you
hard.
were sharing your story about the bathroom, she came to mind. And just to share with you, she's noted for a piece called Lift Every Voice.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like a harp. It's like a harp. So she's from the Harlem Renaissance a little before and during, but that piece that she does was about us speaking our truth and lifting our voice. And just something you said just really gravitated to me. And so I'm glad you do know who I'm speaking of now.
Yeah, so with the Harlem Renaissance, I know that there were at least 50 artists there at like these meetings, like they would hold. So you know some of the, like the prevalent ones. So I'm gonna really look her up now because I do not think I own the book that talks about all of the artists from the Harlem Renaissance. I may just have a few books that reference certain key people. So, you know, like Jacob Lawrence, Premier Bearden, they're gonna stand out. Betty Saar. So some of the bigger names, they're always gonna stand out and they know them. But yes, I'm gonna look up Miss Savage. I'm gonna that's on my homework now, Miss Portia. I appreciate that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
The #1 piece was featured at the World's Fair in New York. And it was because she was inspired from the song that became the Negro National Anthem. So yes.
Yeah.
It says in a question, it says here, how would you say your art has changed over time?
Well, a lot of ways I feel like my art has changed over time. At first, it was just all about me or my friends. Can I get a laugh? Or, you know, and I didn't take it seriously. Then as I went to like school, like Heron for Saturday school, and I wasn't like a school kid, like that kind of changed my imagination or my process at times. I think that for me, like mentally, art or drawing has always been my escape. So over time, like practicing, I've gotten better. Even if I try to stay away from it or not do it, I find myself drawn to it. And on different jobs or different places, like just a simple fact, someone would see me drawing, they created these little mini micro opportunities along the way throughout my life. So to me, I feel like it was God or the ancestors like, hey, come on back, boy, come on back over here, come on back. And gradually I made it back. But when I did, I feel like how it changed me was like I was coming from a dark place. I was lost, you know. But I had kids. I got to raise my kids. I want to show my sons that it's not too late to follow your dreams. And they were like in junior high and high school at the time. So it was like, well, what about you, Daddy? You always like to draw. So it was like I just found myself gradually shifting from behind this barber and stylist chair in the school full time. It was like I had to make a choice. And I know that I found that it changed me because as I started showing my work while I was in school, because I knew I was in my like late 30s and I was like, or going into my 40s before I finished school. And I was like, it was a struggle, it was a challenge. So it changed my life because I found more and more like each day, like I was passionate, like this is really what I want to do. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna do the stuff that I want to do, especially when the opportunities wasn't even here at first. So it's like I found myself kind of like steadily carving out little opportunities or finding my way in places. And then I had a friend that became a manager, like an artist. She's not from here, but she was here for several years. Amy Ward became a manager of mine for 1 year. And she'll say, I didn't get you in these places your artwork did, but she had the connections and she knew how to handle herself like business-wise or business savvy. So I was learning from her. Then like my professor, Hector Del Campo, Hector was a friend of mine. And one Saturday we kind of spun off because I was older. So I was closer or older than some of my professors. And we just kind of talked one day and it was like class was canceled, but we talked and he was like, Mano, you can go so much farther. Like you have to believe in yourself and you got the talent and you putting in the work. And it was like people along the way. So like Hector and Stephanie, and then another friend that's a mentor, Sam Vasquez. So they were both artists that were major. And I'm working my way with Amy. And I got this opportunity right about my senior year, last semester at Heron. I got an opportunity to show my work in the Indiana Landmark. So it'll be a solo show, but the Landmark is too big, it's too broad. So Amy was like, hey, maybe you should do a 3-person show. So at first I was gonna do it with my friends Omar and Andre. We close, we was all around each other every day. We all about in the same realm. And Amy was like, hey, you always talk about Hector and Sam. Why don't you ask them to do the show? And I laughed and I said, nah, they like way up here. And I'm like, I ain't even got through the door yet. I just know them. And she was like, you should ask them and see. So I asked Hector and Sam, and to my surprise, they both was like, yes. Like, where's this place at? I've never shown there. I'd love to do it. Oh, we got an opportunity. So it was like a Latin mix and a soul brother. And it's like, we put this show together. And then their knowledge and know-how was kind of like, it catapulted me. It was like a free class, like a master class. Like, so I got a professor that's been my friend and kind of mentoring me even when I wasn't in his classes. And then I got another friend who I looked up to when I didn't know this dude was like, hey, this dude's from New York. He's back and forth from here. And he's been here. And he did like Conseco Fieldhouse way back in the days. And he was doing design work. And he's showing like with a lot of the great graffiti artists from New York, like he was from this area. So I'm like, these guys are like my friends now. And they both said yes. And it was like they showed me how to start showing in a whole different capacity than I could even learn in school. It was like they were giving me their years of experience, and we got media attention. The Nouveau wrote about us, and we had a lot of like their resources, not we. I just got the venue, but they had resources that were like beyond my reach, which kind of like gave me like maybe a 3-year advantage over some of the people that I was in school with just by doing the show with them. So in essence, it was my senior thesis from Heron. Like, this is my exit show. I didn't do one on campus. I didn't do one at one of the small coffee houses because I was doing that at Ivy Tech. So it was like, I kind of guess I got hungry, and I was just like, I just love this and I'm passionate. And it kind of like sparked the childhood memories of me being at Heron as a kid. And then honestly, some of the stuff was, I had a couple of chips on my shoulder because I could not get in a show at Heron, but I had done like raw artists and I'm showing work in New York. And people were like, ooh, where are you from? Where are you from? What borough are you from? I'm like, Indianapolis. How long have you been here? I just got here today. They were like pop-up shows. It was like I was just trying my reach outside of the city. And but there were a couple of shows I couldn't get in. So it was like they kind of made me mad. And then one that really made me mad was I could not get in the last show at Heron, and it was like, hey, maybe you should try again next year. It was like an undergrad show or something. And I'm like, this is my last semester. So then that show right there was like, I got way more publicity, way more attention. I met way more arts administrators because of Hector and Sam's resources and connections, that this was like better than anything I could have done on campus anyway. So it's like I didn't realize it at the time. It was like a blessing, you know, like sometimes when you don't get your way, it's because there's a better way for you. And now to surprise, it's like one of the professors that's in charge at Heron in the sculptural building now, they saw some of my work at another art show and has invited me to come speak to his current students. So once again, I feel like it's a 360 that made me happy. There was another question in the comment section.
Say, Mr. G, I think there's 3 right now, so you could pick, but one is about the creative process, like speaking to how you work through an idea in your head and like making it a finished piece.
And then meet the artist. Okay,
yeah.
So role in the community, creative process. Okay.
It's a lot of questions at once.
Well, that's cool. We can kind of hit them. So creative process. So sometimes I just do stuff like this, which is it's nothing. And I just play around. And, you know, like I said, I still keep, where's one at? So this is my current sketchbook. So what I do is how I identify them. I have not really figured the whole system, but I just collect stickers from all over and my own stickers. And I collect stickers. So this is how I identify my sketchbooks. But sometimes I draw in them, like I said, and I write in them. And like all of them are like this. And some of them are written and drawn. It's kind of hard to see. So like I had a little clothing brand, like a streetwear brand. And I'm like, I'm going to revise it because people are like, hey, where can I get a sweatshirt or a hoodie? Tattoo ideas for myself. I love the ink, but I hate needles. And then so like what's weird too is so like some of this stuff, it ends up like they're just goals or thoughts. And I just whip through the beard oil line that I was playing with. So I just sketches and ideas. And then later on, they might end up in my iPad, or they end up here in the studio. I'm trying to find, it may be in another sketchbook, but I was trying to find if I had a sketch from a piece in one of these sketchbooks. But so like, for instance, this piece started out as just a sketch. Like I was just drawing a sketch one day and was just sketching out this crazy head. And I love cities. So like I've always loved cities. So like the hip hop part of me is always like those buildings like New York, Chicago, Frank Lloyd Wright, architecture. Didn't know about it. Love a lot of his buildings somewhere in Chicago. So it's like these weird things that you find out when you go to school and they actually start teaching you stuff, or like these weird classes. So like at one time I took all the ology, psychology, philosophy, sociology, any ology they had, Stephanie made me take it. I'm like, well, I only need 2. And she was like, you're gonna need all of these, Gary. And I'm like, just punishing me for something. But she was right. So it's like weird that like all these extra classes that I took, like when I finally got to hearing the lady there, Pam Hacker, was like, you got enough credits, I could just give you a degree. If I could, I would. But it was like, I was just taking classes just to take them. Like I just fell in love with learning for a minute. So even with degrees, like one day, maybe I'll go back and get a master's, which if I would have did the minor in art history, I could have got a doctorate. The only way you can get a doctorate in art is art history. But at the same time, I'm like, do I really need it? Like, who's gonna say, hey, Dr. G, and you draw a lot. So that's crazy. But my creative process is, so it still stems back to sometimes it's music and I'm just listening to something and I just go with it. Sometimes it's a complete thought. Sometimes some of the hardest things to do are commissions. And it's not hard because you may not have the talent or know-how. It's like you have to please somebody sometimes. And sometimes there are some people who don't know what they want. So it's like, hey, draw it. And when we see it, we'll know. And I'm like, that's not really enough to go on. So I try to do that. But like when I can connect things, like I try to take things that relate. So like if there's a piece, so just like say some of my murals, I try to find a focus or a narrative to speak from. Like what's my position here? So for me, it was like the Statue of Liberty. Like what's one thing in America that symbolizes freedom, that symbolizes everybody? This torch is supposed to be lit. And I'm like, if she's sad, because that was my sentiment. At one time I made people mad, you know, when Colin Kaepernick was out. That's when I started with the Statue of Liberty. I had a piece where I made her take a knee. And like some people were like, I said, but the flag's not touching the ground, you know. But it was upside down, which is the stress from the military. So it's like a lot of things that I've learned, I kind of just use like in ideology, or that's where that sociology and psychology comes in. It's like you kind of get people to come in. So where it kind of offended some people, other people got it. And then I actually changed a couple of people's perspectives. I changed a couple of people's perspectives about things that they felt like they were strongly against, you know. And then sometimes I've even found things out like myself just from talking to people. So sometimes just conversations, like candid conversations, inspire me. So like tonight, how Miss Portia talked about Miss Savage. So now I'll look up Miss Savage and I'm gonna look up Lift Every Voice and Sing. I'll probably listen to the song that I know 1,000 times, probably more than 1,000 times that I've heard, but I'll probably listen to it and look at that. And in some kind of way, it's gonna inspire me to do something that I don't even think I'm gonna do. So that's that weird philosophy there. There was something else. So we got creative process. As far as Meet the Artist, I have been to Meet the Artist actually like 3 times. And it's funny because my studio, if he was here tonight, I'd tell him to come stick his head in. But my studio is across the hall from Anthony Radford. So he's the main curator, art in residence at the Central Library, and he's become a mentor and a friend. But at first, I was probably a pain in his butt because I was coming to the library all the time like, who is this man? How do I meet him? I didn't know about Meet the Artist. I'm leaving messages for him nonstop. Then when I finally met him, I was in a show called Flavor Fresh. My lady named Miss D. Rivera here. So I'm like, she was like, we're gonna get you in, baby. And I'm like, I'm thinking I'm gonna get in. And he was like, no, my list is full. I stay full for like 2 or 3 years. And then one day, just random, he said, hey, are you ready for me? You got to come up with at least one masterpiece for me. I need 4 pieces. And Tony made me create one of my favorite, most famous pieces. I call it Changing Faces. And you can flip it any way, and the picture's still a picture. And you'll see different stuff. It's like on multi-layers. And people have found stuff that I didn't even know about. If you Google the artist Gary G on the Central Library's website, you can see a video of me talking about that. It's like way back in 2014. So what's that, 7 years ago? So I feel like that was one of my breakout points. And then like last year with the murals for social change and the Black Lives Matter mural and working with Arts for Learning and coming into places like the library and just various schools around the city. I got to work with the Art Center, and I was in the juvenile detention center, and we found out they hadn't had any visitors for like 8 or 9 months, and we was the first people to come in, and I got to do a charcoal program with them. So as being a kid who used to get in trouble at times and ended up in prison for a few years for something I didn't do, but if I wasn't doing stuff I didn't have no business doing, I wouldn't have been there in the first place. That's why you got to watch what you're doing when your mom and daddy say don't do nothing. But long story short, it's like all of these things impacted my life. So my role in the community is to transform narratives. My role in the community is to include people. My role in the community is to inform people. My role in the community is to connect and coordinate with people. Sometimes I get paid for these things. A lot of times I don't. But that's what it is when you have passion or love for something and you feel like this is what I should be doing. So back to the Central Library and being mentored by Tony Radford. This year and last year, I started a show called Hip Hop Anthology, and I do it in volumes because I'm a hip hop head, but it's not that every piece in the show is about rap music or rap. So it started in August, but I had the idea was, hey, I want to do this in June because June is Black Music Month. And hip hop, as one of the greatest, Grandmaster Caz says, hip hop didn't invent anything, we reinvented everything. So I try to do the same thing with my art or the art shows. Like I've challenged the narrative. Like one of the guys, it was going to be a mentor for me at first. So what I didn't mention about Amy was a white lady, total different lifestyle than mine. And I had another guy that was an older Black man that at first I just was like, I'm going to jump in and go with him. But I said, let me listen to their proposals. He wanted me to wear a suit all the time. I can't afford no suit. Now I can. But at the time, I couldn't afford no new suit for every first Friday. And I'd have been uncomfortable. And that's not the crowd I like to roll with. It's like, I'm a hip hop head. I like to come as I am. You can come to my shows in jeans and people are like, what I gotta wear? Do I have to dress up? No. Whatever you wore to work, come. Bring your kids, whatever. You know, if it's that type of show, come on in. I'm a as we are type person, like how they say church is supposed to be. Come as you are. That's me. I just wanted to change the narrative. Our shows don't have to be stiffy and stuff, and everybody's walking around like, oh, I need my wine. That's not me. So I was like, I can't do that, man. And then he was like, and you need to change your work, and it needs to be more commercial, and it needs to be this. And now, in some aspects, I have had to commercialize some of the work I do, but I still get to be free to be me. And that's what Amy was encouraging me to do. She said, no, I like you. I want to sell you. I want you to be comfortable being you. And that's how I feel like people should be in life, no matter what you are, who you are, where you are in life. You need to do what makes you happy. And that's how I feel like is our freedom. If you're not hurting anybody or going out intentionally harming anybody or saying things to just destroy people's psychos and energies, then I feel like you should pursue what you're after. And for me, that's how art works. So back to me and Tony and the mentor and the hip hop anthology. So now it's like, it was my second year, and I got, first year I got a written article in the Star. I hadn't made it in the Star like that before, and it was about the show, but it's not just me. It's like I kind of curated. So it was my first curator shot, and that came because I was in the hat for a curator program, and I felt like the people was kind of just using me to say at the time, they talked to me like, oh, we talked to this Black guy, was the Beckman Fellowship winner at the time. I felt like they just used me as a numbers game, talked to me for months. I couldn't even get an interview. They say, hey, fill out an application. Couldn't even get an interview with people. They picked some other people, but ironically, the program fell apart. But in this process, Tony was like, don't worry about it. We give you an opportunity. So they gave me the opportunity to do hip hop anthology. I just started calling friends. It was like, I like their work. I wanted to work with them. I feel like they work the style. And in that, I crossed a lot of boundaries. I brought skaters in. Like they might listen to punk rock music, but the punk rock music and hip hop was the same. I had some people that might listen to jazz, same thing. So it's like I can listen, but their work, all the work and the colors, and it's like, to me, it was like it creates a melody. So sometimes even though stuff is visual, for me, it's kind of like I see pictures or I hear and I feel things, like these little voices going off and like, get that with this and that. And I just like to try it. I mean, everything didn't work, but I'll be feeling like for some reason with art and this art stuff, I follow my heart, and it's like it clicks a lot. And it's like I amaze myself sometimes at the things that happen. Or like I was saying, those goals that I write down, a lot of times they come before I know they're gonna come. But somebody else might see what you was doing, and it's like they give you that opportunity. I've had a lot of opportunities where I was the first. So it's kind of like it's a make or break deal. So back to that role you play in the community is like, oh, if I mess up, nobody else gets a shot. But if I do right, it opens the doors. So these are the things. And the first time I did that was at Art and Soul 2018. I was the first artist they wanted artists to speak. And it was like the other guys or people who had did it before then were all kind of quiet artists. And it was like, was walking and they do this drum line coming in. Like the African drums and following the grotto drums. And it felt like somebody hit me in the head and said, boy, quit playing. And I was just doing these dances, body was hurting, and I was just moving to the beats of the drum. And it felt like something just woke me up that day. And from that day on, it was just like a different fire or inspiration, like just from the looks of the crowd, from the people like the elders to the little kids that was out there. It was like, oh, by being the first is responsibilities with this, you know. And I'm like, I'm not perfect. I don't have everything figured out. Like I said, I just strive to try to do better every day. Like, you know, I've done some bad stuff in life, and you know, we all have. It's like you can't take back the bad. Don't harp on it. Don't dwell on it. When you make mistakes, you learn from them, but try to do more good than you did bad. So that just became my philosophy and my perspective. And I feel like that's kind of what helped me. Like, I've seen other artists and I've helped friends of mine get opportunities that I couldn't get. But sometimes if I see other people win, it feels like I win. It might not be my time. The next time might be my time. Sometimes I've been passed up for stuff and you cool with the people, you congratulate them, and then you never know, turn around and they done said, hey, you need to talk to my friend Gary. And it's worked out like that. So it's like, you know, I just try to just be happy for people in general. You know, that's pretty much it. I put that in my art.
That's awesome.
I love that, my friend.
Yeah. I love the comment section right now. Portia, so Shania says she loves your truth.
I love Shania. I had Miss Shania in summer camp this year, my first summer camp. And Shania
That's what Miss Jackson was saying.
You know, they love, they challenge because they not a bad kid, but they challenge. That's my TikTok star too.
I love
They had their little dance grooves going. So it's like people like Shania, it's like kids like that, they inspired me this summer. You know, we worked on some projects, and then our projects spill into, I carry the stuff, the energy from them, I carry that over too to the next group of kids. So it's like, you inspire me too, Shania, all of y'all. That's just the way the world works. Yeah.
You inspire me too.
That's what we all supposed to feed off of that energy with each other. And y'all my future. Y'all the future. That's why I try to invest in y'all. Like, you know, it's sometimes when people try to discourage us, I like to encourage y'all. Just do the right thing and follow that path. Yeah. See my old classmate Marcia down there. Yeah. See, it's just everyday people like that. Like, man, everybody that I talk to, it's something good from that. You know, even just seeing some of y'all faces and smiles, like y'all here with me just to listen or talk to me. Like, that means a lot. You know what I mean? It's at one time, it's like, well, nobody paying me no attention. But what it was, I consistently just let me keep working on myself. And so now, you know that I tell y'all that in the camp, didn't I? You'll never know who's watching you or when they gonna strike. So that's it, you know.
Yeah.
Because we all got a role to play in the community, whatever it is. Just play it to your best of your ability.
Yeah. Well, this has been such an insightful and wonderful connected conversation. I know we are close to our time, so I just wanted to take a moment to thank Mr. G for being here with us tonight. Like I said, this has been such an incredible conversation for us to have, and thank you for bringing us into your studio, which we've so enjoyed. And I am gonna real quick launch a poll so participants can let us know, you know, their experience with this workshop. So I'll leave it up. It says I'm logged in. Oh, it's because Angelina and I are both logged in together. So Angelina, if you can hear me and you want to log out, I will launch the poll. But if not, that's okay. We don't need to do it either. But yeah, I just want to like repeat that this has been really wonderful. It's kind of a change of pace for us a little bit, which I think has been refreshing for everybody to kind of get to witness something new. Okay, I think Angeline, let me try. Oh,
My
Tatiana's asking
studio
where your
is at
studio is.
3001 New Jersey. I know for a fact, November 27th, from like 4 to 10 p.m., we'll have an open house here. So I'll post it
cool.
on like my Facebook and Instagram and all that again, or send you all the information via email.
Yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah, perfect. If Mr. G,
Yeah,
if you send it to
yeah.
me, I will send it out to everybody with the recording of this workshop. So that way
Okay.
we can have everything all together.
Okay.
Okay, well, it's still not letting me launch the poll, which is fine. We gave it our best try. We'll try again next time. But thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I've really enjoyed it and I hope all of you have too.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
thanks
thank
for
you,
having
Ms.
me.
Jackson, for helping
Yeah.
us to facilitate this. We so appreciate you.
It's inspiring to me to, number one, his studio is in the mid-north area, number one, but it's important that someone can take the time to bring us to their level to inspire us. And I'm like Shania, Mr. G, I really loved your truth, but when, as creative as you are, for you to share with us your real self and how you articulated your experiences was just really, really inspiring. And so again, I'm looking forward to working with you again. And I'll see you at the open house in November, Mr. G.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. You know, I just feel like it's better for our representative to really be representative of whoever we are. Because when you start lying to yourself to try to impress other people, you forget what you told yourself. I learned that early from a lot of people, you know, that had truths that it was really like hard for them to hide. And they was just like neighbors or people that I just knew. And it was like, you know, if they can be who they are, I should be who I am. And I should not be ashamed of whatever I've done in life. You know, because somebody, just like me, you're going to learn from somebody else's mistakes if you pay attention. Or you learn from somebody else's positive experiences if you pay attention. And that's why I said I feel like we can learn from anybody that's 5 to 55 to 105 if they still around, you know. And I wholeheartedly believe that, like, you know, I met you, Miss Jackson, when we first started at Arts for Learning. And I think you just had a candid conversation with me one day and then a phone call to lead to this. So like I was telling Shania, you don't never know who's watching you and when they're going to strike for what. You know, so I appreciate that opportunity as well.
Amen.
Yes, I was going to say, well said. And what a good note for us to end on, right? What a good
Yes.
kind of energy for us to carry with us for the rest of tonight. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. We hope to see you all at the next one. We'll send some information out once it's a little more finalized, but hope everybody has a great evening. It's been great seeing everybody.
Thank y'all. I enjoyed being here.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
again. Yeah, good night, everybody.
Thank
All right.
you.